and welcome to Cult Movie Cult, where we watch and discuss the horrific, the obscure, and the flat-out strange from the other side of cinema. I'm Mark Dickerson.
And I'm Jeremy Fink.
And this is Episode 7, Part 2 of our 3-part series, So Bad It's Good, the best of the worst from the depths of cult cinema. Today we are going to explore a little film from 1990 called Troll 2, which, as far as I can tell, has absolutely no correlation to Troll 1. Which I still have yet to see. But really, when you already have a masterpiece such as this, why would any other films with the word troll in the title even need to be viewed? I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
But I don't think they even said the word troll. But we'll get to that.
No, more about goblins, but
yeah, goblins, I believe they were called. So as we've just brought up, we're talking about Troll 2.
Goblins still exist. Your Grandpa Seth is telling you.
Don't tell me they ate him, Grandpa.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay, I'll tell my father that you're coming with us tomorrow.
Where are we going?
Nilbog, a wonderful half-empty town. Oh, Elliot, it will be wonderful.
There's no coffee here in Nilbog. It's the devil's drink.
You can't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it.
Monsters, what do you want from me?
This is my house.
Grandpa?
Don't let them eat, Joshua. For the love of God, don't let them eat.
They're eating her. And then they're going to eat me. Oh my God!
So Troll 2 is a 1990 horror comedy film directed by Claudio Fragasso under the pseudonym Drake Floyd, starring Michael Stevenson, George Hardy, Margot Prey, Connie McFarlane, Deborah Reed, and Jason Wright. The plot centers around a family which is pursued by vegetarian goblins who seem to have this strange green gooey substance that fuels their existence and helps turn people into plants because they want to turn people into plants so they can eat them because apparently they can't just eat people unless they are plants. Which is,
are you trying to say this is not logical, Jeremy? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I think there is some kind of logic there. It just maybe operates under its own very specific set of laws.
Completely, I'm sure. Yeah, it makes complete sense. I mean, it's just, yeah. So the green goo is very, I almost feel like iconic for this film. It does have a great color and a great look to it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are some for a movie that's kind of so strange, plot wise and confusing, and the acting is hit or miss. I think that the production design for this was actually pretty radical.
Yeah,
it's pretty decent. Like, there's like green food and, green, was it like donuts and
lots
corn?
Of green.
Lots of green.
Yeah. Corn.
I guess
the
it's
popcorn? Is that what you're referring to?
The popcorn. Yeah, the popcorn. Yeah. Well, the popcorn scene, of course. There's a very strange scene involving a sexual encounter with popcorn.
I had completely forgotten about that scene until I rewatched it. It just blew my mind all over again.
Yeah. No, that's definitely, that one's got to be up there on the list of strange sex scenes in movies.
Well, a lot of these films that we're discussing, I'd probably seen like a while ago, and I'm kind of revisiting them. But I'm always interested to hear, since this is your first time viewing this film, what's your impression of it?
So my impression with this one, so of the movies that we're discussing for this series, obviously we've already talked about Plan 9 from Outer Space, and we will be talking about The Room on our next episode. This is the one that I would probably say is the worst of the worst.
Wow.
I would be so bold. I mean, I think on the one hand, you take a horror movie, which I guess we could call this a horror movie generally. And the goal of a horror movie, in my opinion, is to either scare or disturb you. And ultimately, it did do those things to me. But I guess, I don't know, it's just, it's one of those films that just seems so distant from anything that's human, anything that's human or understandable.
Right.
And that's why I think for me, it's probably the one. And Rotten Tomatoes, I think, seems to agree. What does it have, like a 6% or something?
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying as far as the effects. The effects are pretty effective. I mean, some of the things that happen with plants in this movie are pretty disturbing, actually.
Yeah, surprisingly so. Yeah.
Yeah, surprisingly, you wouldn't think that plants could be that could do those things, basically. Yeah, that's something that's pretty effective with this film, I would say. Um, there is a lot of behind the scenes, I guess, different things that were going on. There was a lot of there was a language barrier because the directors were both Italian, and none of the cast was, as far as I know. So there was a lot of miscommunication and things like that, which led to, I'm sure, a lot of how this movie ended up so bad.
Yeah, it does
certainly
seem
explains some of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like that in this particular one, just the kind of issues that it runs into. If we were assessing it as we would normally assess a movie, and not as this beast which it is, the problems it runs into do seem to be kind of miscommunication and things that tonally don't line up in the way they necessarily should.
Tone is a huge thing. Yeah, we touched on this a bit with Plan 9, actually. We discussed how certain things are just off, certain lines that people say are just strange, and there's a lot of that in this film. In all three films, actually, that we're talking about, that happens a lot. Some of the, one of the main things I wanted to focus on with this episode is the acting. Dear God, the acting. Some of the line readings. I mean, just right off the bat, when they're in the car, and the mom, I feel like, in a movie with so much bad acting, I hate to single one person out, but she, to me, is just she's on another plane.
Yeah, I mean, all
she's
of them. She's on another plane, but
yeah, she's on a whole nother level. But when she offers her son a sandwich, and she goes, "Do you want some Joshua?" or she once says it like, "Do you want some Joshua?"
Yeah, some Joshua.
Like,
yeah.
it's just, even just that line is just very strange the way she says it, and actually repeat that line to the very end, which I didn't realize before.
Yeah, well, it does seem a little bit like the way the actors. It almost seems like you had a director, which may have been the case, who was doing line readings with the actors, like very specific ways of saying these lines. But it just, like we said, just did not translate in a way that the actors like it didn't seem like at any point the actors were actually interacting with each other. It just seemed like they were all like had the line that they were supposed to say and were almost saying it to like a wall, or like saying it to themselves in the mirror, and not like actually like, acting
okay, I have this,
with anyone.
I have this line I have to say, so I'm going to say it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Another part that stands out, it's a general store owner. That actor is just wild. But when I think he only has like one quick scene, or maybe even two, I'm not sure. But he goes, "Coffee, that's the devil's drink." Talking about that. I mean, that's just stuff like that is why this movie it's just so fun.
Yeah, lots of quirky, and also another moment. Well, I mean, if we're hitting on kind of moments right now, another moment when they're riding to the new home that they're going to. When they're in the car, I think the mom says, "Let's sing that song you like," and they start singing "Row Your Boat."
Yeah,
row your boat. Like,
that really makes me laugh for some reason.
Yeah, because it's like,
that song that I love.
Yeah,
it's really really
you love.
Yeah, you love that song?
And she could have just said, "Let's sing row your boat." Like they all just know that it's that song you love, and they all immediately know exactly what she's talking about.
There's something so strange about that. That song I love. Yeah, there's lots of stuff like that. I mean, I will say, watching it again, it does kind of, and I do remember this a little bit, it does kind of drag a little bit, I felt like. To, as entertaining as it is and how much there is to love about it, it does kind of it overstays its welcome maybe a bit, but that probably just adds to the badness of it, to be honest. So
I'm curious, Mark, actually, and this is a question we should probably talk about with all these movies. What was the quality of the I don't know if we would say print, because it's probably digital, but like, did you watch like a high quality, high definition version of this, or did you
actually watch a high quality version of it?
So it was interesting because the one I found, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but I found a really, really awful, like low quality, I think it was on YouTube maybe, version of this, like maybe even cropped a little bit or something like that. Okay. But it kind of almost added to it in an interesting way, because I mean, obviously the background for a film like this is kind of rooted in exploitation, horror. This is just such an out there concept, and it almost made it more believable to me in a way, because it just looked so bad And I think with movies like that fall into this kind of so bad it's good category, a lot of the time what makes them feel bad is the fact that they look kind of good, and you expect them to be of a certain quality, and then they fall short. So I don't know. For me, like being able to see a really nasty print of this one made it just feel like it was the dirtier,
Right.
underground thing rather than this poorly directed.
Yeah, I would love to see a screening of this. I would love to go to a screening of this. I haven't really seen many of, there's lots of The Room and Plan 9 and stuff like that, but you don't see too much Troll 2, but I think this would be really fun. I've had a lot of, parties or, get-togethers where I bring friends over and watch this movie, and it's always a good time, especially that popcorn scene.
Yeah, it's just so unexpected. And what do they say? So so to give a little background, there's a group of guys, and one of the guys is in a kind of a relationship with the daughter from this family. So the family consists of a mom, a dad, a son, and a daughter, teenage daughter, young son, and the daughter's in a relationship with this guy who seems to be so connected to his friends that for some reason he can't leave them behind when he goes and spends any time with his girlfriend. They're just showing up all the time. But so basically they go on this trip, and he brings his friends along with the promise of liberated women. Which was interesting. They just kept using the word liberated. It's like things like that where it's like, what? Like liberated. Just so bizarre.
Yeah, it is odd. Yeah.
So many strange moments.
I love when there's such a strange moment when the daughter just starts dancing in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
That random dance she has there, just very, I don't know, just comes out of nowhere. But the plot. I'm trying to even think of how to. So basically it's an exchange program, right? Does this even exist in real life?
I don't know. And it doesn't seem to be it doesn't seem to be explained how they came into this exchange at any point.
The family basically switches places with a rural farming family in Nilbog, which is goblins spelled backwards. Spoiler alert. And as we mentioned, they do refer to them as goblins the entire film. I don't think they ever say the word troll.
No, I don't think so.
But apparently they wanted, the producers or whoever wanted to call it Troll 2 to bank off the success of, I guess, what was Troll 1.
Which wasn't that successful on its own, I don't think.
I believe that it was. I mean, I'm sure it was moderately, as a type of horror film, maybe it was. But, I guess they just didn't believe in the Goblin movie on its own, making lots of money for them. So go figure. The family goes to Nilbog, and it's a very strange town. Obviously, lots of odd things going on, and there's this woman who is the main villain of the movie, the Goblin Queen, and she's pure camp. That's why I love this character.
Druid Credence Leonore Gielgud, right? Is her name?
Gielgud, yeah.
Gielgud,
so.
Gielgud. She says it really fast every time. So
yeah, but she's out there on her own, and so she's like terrorizing the main kid, and their main goal, the goblins' main goal, I guess, is to turn everyone into, as we said, vegetables, so that they can eat them, of course, because they are vegetarians. And apparently that was something when I was looking, information up about this movie. There was the one filmmaker, or the one director. It was kind of part of her agenda, I guess, was she wanted to express her frustration. I guess she had friends that were vegetarians, and this apparently made her angry enough to write a whole movie about it.
Which is poetic, though. There is a certain poetry. Most people would just say to their friends, hey,
right.
I'm not fond of your vegetarianism, but apparently she felt, passionate enough to make a feature film about it.
Yeah, it was the director Claudio Fragaso's wife. And so she came up with that idea, I guess, which is interesting. It's novel. You don't see that very often. Mm-hmm. So I'll definitely give her points for originality there.
Yeah.
And it does, basically equate into that green goo that we were discussing, and the pretty interesting, pretty impressive effects. Some of them more impressive than others. The goblins themselves are pretty much, you can tell, just little people with masks on. Which I'm all for. I miss that, like Ewoks and things like that. Like, I think it's great.
Practical.
It makes sense. And so, anyway, basically things do not go well for the family. And, but, in the end, everything works out. I don't want to give away anything, but
No.
it doesn't matter what you know about this movie. You should just go and see it.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, I think you probably enjoy it.
Yeah, it's certainly a mood piece. I think is the nicest way to put it. You know you're along for the ride, not the destination.
Exactly. Yeah. So
another detail I think to include. Just, I mean, we're trying to explain this plot just to kind of set it up a little bit.
Right.
But once again, you kind of just have to dig in. There's also the son in the family seems to have a relationship with his dead grandfather.
Right. Oh, yes.
Who he sees and who warns him
That's a huge part of it.
About these goblins and or trolls. They're goblins, but you know, I kind of want to just call them trolls just so there's some kind of connection
to justify it. Yeah.
To justify the name. And apparently there were sequels to this movie.
There were. Wow.
Specifically to this one, I'm trying to find it in my notes somewhere here. I believe that it was called Troll 3. They actually named it, which is interesting because personally I think I would have called it Troll 2 too. because this is, I don't think this is actually, I mean it's not a sequel.
This is its own thing. Yeah.
This is its own thing. So you know, if Troll 2 isn't out there, maybe that's a you know, a project to look at down the line.
Yeah.
But.
Well, there's Best Worst Movie, which is a documentary made by the child actor from this film, actually, which is pretty interesting. He grew up and made a documentary about it. Came out a few years ago, 2009, actually. And his name's Michael Stevenson. And I would definitely recommend that if you're at all interested, you know, if you enjoyed this film or interested in behind the scenes, what people would have to say about it. It's definitely worth checking out. And one thing me and Jeremy were discussing before we started recording was one of the interesting things that we found was that the actor who played the dad was and is a dentist in real life.
Yeah, still to this day.
Right. So he was a dentist at the time when he was in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how he ended up in this film, but
it looked. I did a little bit of research in my notes. I actually have a thing pulled up. It looks like what happened was he auditioned and had always kind of been interested in acting. And the very next day after his audition, he got hired. And Troll 2 was a 3-week-long shoot, which is not a long shoot, but for something in this budget range, you know, and for someone who is also a professional person and not a full-time actor, is a pretty big commitment. And there's a quote here from him where he says he would go to the dentistry practice and work, and then he'd shoot, and then he'd go in and see some patients. Which I must have been a really pretty strange experience going from the subject matter he was dealing with as an actor, going back to looking at the insides of people's mouths. Yeah. I can only imagine that he probably had nightmares for months and months and months.
Yeah, he's probably expecting green goo to come out of their mouths or something.
Yeah, really. No, it must have been.
That's very interesting. I mean, he's just kind of like a regular guy who somehow ended up in this movie. Yeah, that's just one of the things that you learn from that documentary.
A lot of these actors, I think, actually, it didn't look like they really did. I mean, a few of them had a few other roles, but like hardly.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. Yeah, one of the things I did want to bring up about this movie, because I want to start talking about how we even found out about these movies. You know, since they are cult films, I kind of want to discuss, you know, how they came out of the ether and how we, you know, what attracted us to them. And for this film, almost everyone, I mean, anyone who pays attention to, like, you know, meme culture or online viral things, you know, this one scene of bad acting would always pop up, and I don't remember where I saw it first, but, you know, it was a scene from this film, I found out later, which is the one actor, you know, a line something like, you know, they're eating him or they're eating her, and next they're gonna eat us. Oh my god!
Oh my god!
And that scene, you know, and so you like, what is this movie? Well, you know, what film is this scene from? So that was how I first found out about the movie, because I looked that up and it just kind of escalated from there.
That was how you discovered it.
The documentary came out, yeah. So that was just how I found out about it.
Yeah, these movies almost end up being urban legends in a weird way until you actually see them, because it's one of those things where, you know, I mean, I saw this movie for the first time for this podcast. I watched it, and it's kind of weird because I had heard of it, but I can't tell you who told me about it or where I heard of it. It just kind of floats around the ether.
Yeah, it's in the ether, right?
It's in the ether, and then all of a sudden one day, you know, you're like, oh, that's where this reference comes. And it's a very specific thing, but it is culture. It's popular culture in this weird underground way, and probably more influential than we realize.
Yeah, a lot of these movies, even though they're cult films, they find a way to kind of meld into to everyday fabric of society in some way. It's interesting. They kind of just pop up, because they are so unique and odd and interesting. That's what I think anyway. So this is one of those films, and I think that's why it's one of the big three of the So Bad It's Good that we're focusing on. And just to kind of wrap things up, just want to talk about our final takes of the film. Jeremy, in your opinion, what is it about Troll 2 that resonates, with people, and what do you think it is about it that gives it such a lasting impression?
I think that at least of the So Bad It's Good kind of films, what makes this one special is just how outlandish it is. Mm-hmm. Compared to because it's hard to make an exploitation style movie that feels this outlandish, because the whole point of exploitation films is to be outlandish. So to make one that is like on a whole nother level, it just, something has to be just totally off its rocker. And also I think what's interesting is the fact that this one came a little bit after that genre kind of had peaked, and it was almost like the last in a line, because there are probably other movies from the era that would have, like from before that maybe would have fit into a similar thing, but the fact that this was a 90s movie, it was a little later.
Which is very similar to Plan 9, because Plan 9, as we discussed a little bit, he was making a film that kind of went out of fashion by that point, you know? So, and it's the same kind of thing, but I mean, that's what makes it stand out, I think.
Absolutely.
So definitely I would recommend checking this film out, as well as the documentary Best Worst Movie. Kind of a good companion piece to this film. And it's a great party movie, as I mentioned. I have watched this with a bunch of people, especially around Halloween. It's a great one for that.
Make some green drinks.
Oh, yeah, green drinks all around. But yeah, there's lots to discuss about this film. We kind of even just touched on it, but we mostly focus on the acting. But I mean, the editing is terrible. I mean, there's repeated lines, I'm sure unintentional and things like that. So there's all kinds of great stuff, plus the effects to dig into when you watch this movie. But that's all we're going to talk about today for Troll 2. Thanks for listening to Cult Movie Cult. You can check us out all forms of social media, and you can join us next time where we're going to conclude our series So Bad It's Good, where we will talk about The Room, which I am very excited for.
Indeed.
This has been Cult Movie Cult, and until next time, so long from the other side.